In just a moment, Andy Collins of Armadillo Racing will begin tonight's teleseminar. This evening's Armadillo Racing teleseminar will reveal 3 secrets every club racer should know. On the line tonight with Andy Collins is his guest, Jeff Braun. Here now from Armadillo Racing to begin tonight's teleseminar is Andy Collins.
Hi, and welcome to our first ever Armadillo Racing seminar. I am Andy Collins, the president of Armadillo Racing, and I'm going to be your host for this evening's interview. Depending on how much time we spend, we hope to have the opportunity to take some questions from all of you listeners. So as the call goes along, if you come up with a question, something you'd like to ask, please make a note of it. And when we get toward the end, you'll have the opportunity to ask your question. So I have with me tonight race engineer Jeff Braun. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, Andy. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it. Always great to talk to you and talk about racing.
All right. Hey, Jeff, we've got a really good group of people on the line tonight, racers, crews, maybe just some interested people. But before we get into your talk on the 3 secrets every club racer should know, how about telling the little group a little bit about yourself, a little of your background?
Sure. I started racing a long time ago when I was about 6 years old, racing go-karts, and I guess was fortunate enough to turn it into a profession after graduating with a mechanical engineering degree, and ended up after building a bunch of race cars and all of that, turning it into a consulting business, a race engineering consulting business, and had a long stint with Team Scandia, which was based up in your neck of the woods up there. Worked with them for probably 7 years as their technical director. We ended up winning Sebring and the IMSA championship with the Ferrari 333s and doing a bunch of IndyCar stuff and drag racing and all the things that Team Scandia was involved in. So I got to be involved in all of that. And since then, I've done a lot of Daytona prototype racing in the Grand Am Series, and just been lucky to do a lot of club racing stuff, everything from Formula Fords to production cars and sports racers and all of that. So lucky to have done quite a bit of just about every kind of racing in North America.
Wow, that's quite a resume. What are you doing right now?
This year, I'm working for a team called Level 5 Motorsports. They run 2 Daytona prototypes. Matter of fact, I just got back 2 days ago from Daytona for the annual Roar Before the 24, they call it, which is a 3-day test for the Rolex series in preparation for the 24-hour. And just got back from there running them, running one of their DP cars, BMW Riley's, and I've got Ryan Hunter-Ray and Richard Westbrook and Lucas Luer driving for me this year, so really looking forward to it.
Wow, it sounds like you're staying right up on top of things.
Yep, it's great to be racing. Even there's no off season anymore as it goes, and I'm fine with that. The more time I can spend at the racetrack, the better off I am, I think.
Excellent. Well, Jeff, let's get to the meat of the call tonight. In all of your years of racing, I'm sure that there are a handful of things that you've learned that are absolutely critical to any racer or race team. This handful of, let's call them secrets for success as a racer. What I'd like to do tonight is ask you to start off by sharing your first secret that you consider that every racer, whether they be a fully funded professional or a budget-minded club racer, should be aware of.
Sure. Secrets are maybe they're not all secrets of things that you should do. Sometimes there's a secret can be something that you shouldn't do. And the first one tonight that just kind of popped in. I can tell you that all 3 of these secrets kind of came to mind even this weekend when I was at Daytona. And so there's a lot of pro racers that could learn from these too. But the first one I would say that I see a lot of people do, pro and amateur racers, are copying things on cars from other series. And what I mean by that is people watch Formula One races, they watch the NASCAR races, they watch the Grand Am races, and they see things that are done on those cars, and they think, oh, well, if that's a high level of racing, I should apply those same things to my Formula Ford or my Spec Miata or something like that. And the fault that lies with that reasoning is that a lot of people don't know why those things are done to the cars, why they have that wing or why they have that modification or why it's set up that way. And it's not always proper just to look at what the, quote, big guys are doing and copy it. People, I think, need to spend more time understanding why that's done in that particular series and understanding the reasons for those modifications before they just go ahead and copy it. A couple examples. The raised noses on a Formula One car. If that works on a Formula One car, people would assume, well, it should work on my Formula Continental or it should work on my, Formula Atlantic car. There's reasons that those noses are raised. It has to do with the rules, with the track width rules and the front tire sizes that they're required to run and how the air is managed around those front tires and the size of the chassis behind that. If you understand all of that and all of those things apply to your Formula Ford, go ahead and do it. But, bump rubbers. Everybody's heard about the bump rubbers in NASCAR and the Cup cars and how they're using those. Well, why are they really using those? It doesn't make it right that your a sedan car that you're running should be running bump rubbers. Maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't, but just don't copy them unless you know exactly what the reasons behind that is. In Cup, they're running bump rubbers because of the suspension travel limitations that they have. If they had different rules, maybe they wouldn't be doing that. So try to really understand what the reasoning is behind something like that before you copy it. There's a lot of good things to copy, but also it's amazing the number of people I've seen copy things and you just kind of look at it and go, well, that guy really doesn't understand what's going on because what he's doing there is not making his car faster. It's hurting his performance. So read, learn, listen to the people that know why they're doing it and figure out why you're doing those things and grasp the concepts before you just suddenly rush out there and, whack something on your car because McLaren or Ferrari had it on their car.
Well, that sounds like excellent advice, but let me ask you this, Jeff. If you were running in a club race and let's say you have a Spec Miata, would you recommend that you don't copy anybody else in your group?
I think everybody would like to say that they don't copy people with the same kind of car. If you have the same car and you're getting beat, you'd like to tell yourself, no, I'm just going to put my head down and work on my own stuff and make my own stuff better. But you got to look at what the other guys are doing. And I would say the same concept would apply, though. Understand why they're doing it. Understand why you're getting beat by that. And, if you can understand the reason that they've made that change and you think it would help your car, go ahead and do it. And then I'll say, I'm guilty of it too. Racers are racers, and all they want to do is go fast right then, and they're willing to try and do whatever it takes. So, I've copied people before and had no clue as to why I was doing it, other than I was slower than them. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. So I'll forgive anybody that breaks down to that temptation because I've been there myself.
Well, all right, that's an excellent first point. Do you have another one?
Yeah, this actually came up quite a bit. Well, it came up for a long discussion at Daytona this weekend. Like I said, I had Ryan Hunter-Reay and Lucas Luer, and we had Sasha Maas in there and Emanuele Coulard. We were all sitting around talking about Daytona and various tracks, and the point came up with about which corner was the most important corner on this racetrack. And we started to discuss, somebody said, well, it's the corner that leads onto the longest straightaway. And I said, that's not always true. So my second, secret here, I guess, would be the most important corner on a racetrack is not always the one that leads on to the longest straightaway. Sometimes it is, but it's not always. And, we had these bunch of drivers sitting around there, and two of them, and I won't tell you which ones, to protect the guilty, I guess, but two of them didn't grasp this concept until I went through this whole thing, and then they were like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And the reason it's important to know which corner is the most important on a racetrack is because that's the one that you will most work to make your car and your driving the best. And you'll compromise your car and your driving in other corners in order to be really good in that particular corner. So the question is, why isn't it always the one that leads on to the longest straightaway? The way I can give that as an example is, let's say you had a 40-mile-an-hour corner that led onto a long straightaway, and you blew that corner by 3 miles an hour. So you only had a minimum speed of 37 miles an hour in that corner. You'd have to make up to recover that mistake, whether it was a mistake in driving or the car wasn't handling right or whatever the problem was. To make up for that 3 mile an hour difference, you'd have to accelerate that on that straightaway. So as an example, let's say you're going 40 miles an hour, or 37 miles an hour, we'll say, in your street car, and you mash the gas, and you see how long it takes you to get to 40, to make that 3 mile an hour difference. Fairly short time. You can recover from that mistake in a fairly short time. Now let's say you have a 120 mile an hour corner, and you blow it by the same 3 miles an hour due to handling or due to a driver mistake. So you go through that corner at 117 miles an hour. Try that in your street car. Well, maybe not in your street car, but try that someplace where it's legal and see how long it takes to accelerate your mistake from 117 miles an hour to 120 miles an hour. It takes a lot longer time to make up for that mistake. And that's exactly the reason that the most important corner on a racetrack is a fast corner that leads on to a long straightaway. It's got to be, that's the one you got to be really good at. That's the one that's going to cost you the most time if you get it wrong, or give you the biggest advantage if you're better there than your competition. So I'm telling everybody, look at the track map, really understand what corner is the most important. Some tracks, it is the one that leads on to the longest straightaway. But oftentimes people get caught up and they pick the wrong corner, and they're optimizing their car for a corner that's not helping them as much as you could if you were picking the right corner. And like I said, a couple of those drivers there, world-class guys, didn't get that right. So, I know this is supposed to be secrets that club racers should know, but here's a secret that world-class drivers who have won Le Mans should know as well.
Excellent. Let me ask you this. Could you give an example of maybe a corner out here in the Northwest, if you've ever, worked Portland, Seattle, Infineon, that maybe some of the people on the line can relate to, or something like that to give us an idea of exactly what you're saying?
Yes. Let's take the one that pops first into mind would be Infineon, or Sears Point for us old guys. I still have a hard time with that. So there's an example. You have turn 7, like the hairpin, and depending on what configuration you're running, it's a double right-hander. Sometimes it's really a hairpin, but everybody knows it's the corner way in the back that leads onto the long S's, which are, for most cars, a straightaway. In a cup car maybe not, but for a lot of cars that's pretty much a straightaway. A lot of people focus on that corner. They go, man, I got to get a good run there because I'm leading onto this long high-speed S section of the racetrack. I would always much rather be better in turn 6 or the downhill left-hand carousel than I would in turn 7, because that's a fast corner that leads on to a pretty long straightaway. And if you miss that by a little bit, it's going to cost you big time lap time. You spin the tires or you make a little mistake in turn 7 and you drop that 3 miles an hour, you'll make it up before you get to the first S. You'll be able to accelerate up through that. And you'll be the same speed as your competition by the time you get to that first S. So that track has a good example of that. Portland is one of those where it becomes very obvious, and because the last corner at Portland is pretty darn quick and it leads on to the longest straightaway, that's the one that there's no excuse for a mistake there. The whole racetrack for lap time is based on that last corner because it's very quick and leads on to a long straightaway. Again, just pay attention, really try to see, if you have data acquisition, you'll be able to know what the corner speeds are. But most people, you can look at a track map and kind of go through it, but it's not always the obvious choice.
That's an excellent tip. Both of these two have. So what's the third one? What's the third secret?
Okay, the third one I came up with was something that I see people get, caught up in, is everybody always wants to go faster. Everybody always is looking for what they can do to make their car better and make their performance better and all of that. Especially in the off season, there's a lot of places to go look for what the newest, latest, greatest part, tuning tool, engine part that they can get. And I would say the third secret is another one of these don't secrets, and it's don't always go looking for that latest, greatest modification to your car. Don't go looking to buy this new wizard thing that everybody says will gain you this time or do this or do that.
Hey, wait a minute, Jeff. It's getting a little close to home with me.
Okay, I'm sorry. If you're going to go buy one of those latest, greatest wizards, make sure you go to Armadillo Racing, 5 from Andy, and he'll have everything that you need.
Okay.
I don't want to ambush your whole deal here, Andy, but there is, it's one of those things where I see people do this, and they don't really understand their car. They don't understand how what they already have works. How what they already have works. So many people, they run out and they get this, whatever it is, the new carburetor, the new differential, the new rear wing, the new wheel or something like that. And they bolt it on their car and they go out and they get frustrated because they're not any faster. Well, they haven't optimized what they have already. They don't know where the problems in their car are or where the areas that they need to improve are. They're just taking the shotgun approach where, hey, this is supposed to be faster, so I'll bolt it on. Well, they don't understand how to operate that new piece. They don't even know if their car really needs improvement in that area or if there's another area that's lacking so much that it overshadows any of these new parts that they've bought. So I have kind of a way around that, and maybe this is really the secret, but I would suggest that everybody who has a car out there, if you have an Excel computer program and you can do it in Excel, if not, just do it on a piece of paper and list down the left-hand side of the Excel sheet, your piece of paper, all the changes that you normally make to your car. Camber, toe, springs, if you have an aerodynamic car, front wing, rear wing, gurney sizes, gears, rake, stock changes. List them all. Just come up with a list of everything that you can change on your car. Then, as an exercise, in the next column, list what that change does to the feel of your car. So when you go stiffer front spring What does it feel like on your car? More rear wing. What does it feel like on your car? If you can accurately describe what every one of those changes does down your column there, then it should point out areas where you're unsure of, or areas where the car doesn't perform as well as you would like it. Only when you can complete that list and you know everything about what all the changes on your car really do, are you ready to go buy a part or pay somebody to do a suspension modification to your geometry or whatever. Only then are you ready to actually spend the money on that kind of a thing, because if you do that too early, you could be messing up the good part of your car rather than the part of your car that you don't really understand. If you can fill that chart out and you understand your car to that level, then you're ready to go and start spending money on new stuff. But until then, know more about your car. Know more about how you can operate what you already have. An example is, in 2006, I was working for Crone Racing, and we won the Daytona Prototype Series that year. And there was a 6-race string there where we ran exactly the same front and rear spring rates, exactly the same shock absorbers, the same ride heights within 2 or 3 millimeters, the same differential settings, the same packers and bump rubbers, the same anti-roll bars. We hardly changed anything. Very little small minor tweaks, so wing angle, a little bit of rake, and that was about it. That was 6 races in a row in the Daytona Prototype. In those 6 races, we won, I think we had 3 poles, won 2 races, took over the championship lead, and we hardly changed anything on the car. Part of that success was because the drivers knew exactly what car they had each weekend. We'd unload, we'd be at Mid-Ohio one weekend and ran really well. We'd unload with that same exact setup at Barber Motorsports Park. And the first lap out, the drivers knew exactly what the brakes were going to feel like, how it was going to turn in, how it was going to put the power down. There was no relearning the car. We also got to calibrate the racetrack. We knew, okay, it handled like this at Mid-Ohio last week. We unloaded at Barber, and now it handles slightly different. Well, we knew it wasn't because we had changed springs and shocks and bars and all of that. We knew that was what the racetrack was doing. So we could say, wow, this track has less front grip, so maybe we need to make this small change or that small change. So that consistency and really understanding what you have before you move on to the next big step can pay big dividends. And the pro guys miss that all the time, and I think the club racer could benefit from that same approach.
Well, Jeff, these are all 3 excellent secrets that certainly very thought-provoking. It does look, I'm kind of watching the time here, and it looks like we have time for a few calls. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Maybe I can answer some questions, and like I said, let's talk racing. That's my favorite thing, other than actually doing it.
Okay. Well, for all of our listeners, we're going to open up the lines for a few questions. Okay, while we're waiting for the callers to join in with a question, how about, Jeff, take a moment or two and tell us about your son Colin and his racing exploits.
Well, thanks, Andy. Colin's been had a really good year last year. I don't know if everyone knows, but he's turned 21, and back when he finished racing go-karts all over the country and all over the world, he went car racing, won a couple of championships in the Formula TR Series, which was out on the West Coast, and then ran Daytona Prototypes for a couple of years for Crone Racing, and was fortunate enough to be on the championship-winning team with George Bergmeister in 06, which caught Ford's eye, and in 08 signed a deal with Jack Roush and Ford Racing to go run in the NASCAR series, and in 08 won the Rookie of the Year title in the then Craftsman Truck Series, and last year finished 5th in the Camping World Truck Series championship, won a race at Michigan, had 5 poles, and I guess that success was good enough for Jack Roush to put Colin full-time in a nationwide car this year. He'll be driving the number 16 Conway Freight Ford Fusion, and in 4 races, they're going to run the new Ford Mustang, which is the car of tomorrow version of the nationwide car. It'll have a splitter, and it's the new, safer, bigger NASCAR Cup style car that'll be in the nationwide series, and it's going to be a Mustang. It's a pretty cool looking car. So matter of fact, tomorrow he's off to Rockingham to go shake the cars down for the first time. I think they've got about 6, maybe 7 cars built already for him for the year, and he'll be running the Rolex 24 for Krone Racing and Ford in a couple weeks, and then 2 weeks after that, it'll be off to Daytona for first nationwide series, trying to shoot for the Rookie of the Year, Ray Bestis Rookie of the Year championship in that for Roush Racing. So if anybody wants to really keep tabs, we just launched a brand new website there for Colin at pretty simple. It's www.colinbrown.com. So you can check it out and keep tabs on what he's doing this year.
Excellent. Okay, moderator, are we ready for our first question?
I'd like to go back to secret number 2 for a moment, if you would.
Caller, I'm sorry, who is this?
This is Mark Brandt.
Okay, excellent. Go ahead, Mark.
Jeff, I'd like to go back to secret number 2. Because, like a couple of those pro drivers, I'm not 100% on topic with you on this. I race in Sports 2000. We've all got, plus or minus a couple of horsepower. And my grasp of it is if I'm 3 horsepower down at corner exit, 3 miles per hour down at corner exit, I'm going to be 3 miles per hour down the entire length of the straightaway. And I don't make that up until we all top out, and then I might. And if it's not a straightaway that you top out at, you never make it up. You're 3 miles per hour slow going into the braking zone.
That would be true if the aerodynamic drag was linear. But what happens is it's not linear. It's the square of the speed. So what happens is your drag on your car increases at the square of your speed. So if you double your speed, you've quadrupled your aerodynamic drag.
Say no more. That's got it. Thanks.
Okay, no problem.
Yep. I'm just slow, not an idiot.
No. That's, let me tell you, again, I'm not going to tell you. I will tell you that 2 of the guys that didn't understand that concept had won Le Mans before. So don't feel bad.
Okay, moderator, do we have another caller with a question?
Hi, this is Dick.
Hello, Dick. What's your question for Jeff?
Well, it's a question concerning the third point there about buying or putting on new parts or something. For those of us with basically a stock car running in a stock type situation, other than trying basic alignment things like toe in, toe out, and tire pressure staggering stuff, what type of things should we be learning about our car to optimize, as you put it, rather than going out and trying to buy the new carburetor or whatever?
Well, in your situation, Dick, that's in a spec series. Learning, knowing about optimizing your car becomes even more important because you can't, in an open series, you can maybe just go buy a grippier tire or, run a different cam and get some more horsepower, something like that. In a spec series, that's where all the little details become even more important. And that's the critical thing, that making that list, understanding what everything does on the car, And you can get really detailed with that list. We talked about camber. Well, that list can be front camber, but it can be front camber more positive, front camber less positive, more negative, less negative, however you want to characterize what each change has done. And it can end up being a complete database that's written down to understand. And I've done this before. I've done a database on every change I've done to the car with the driver's comment and tried to build a database where I could actually have a pull-down menu and say, okay, the handling condition is oversteer on the exit of the corner. Click. Okay, I've had that. I can see I've had that 6 times in the last year when I've run this car. And each time I had it, here's the change I made, and here's the comment the driver made based on that. So I can see I tried more rear camber 4 times, and that didn't work. And I tried less rear camber twice, and that did work. So, boy, I'm going to try less rear camber and see if it helps again. So if you can build that database, that becomes your secret weapon, because the whole goal about changing things on race cars is to not, is to get it right. I've always said as a race engineer, I'm a hero if 51% of my changes are better and 49% are worse. People think I'm God or something. You just can't be the other way. You can't get it wrong 49% of the time. Then you're not doing your job. And a database like that, people try to say, oh, it's in their mind, and some guys are really good at that. But if you can write those things down and really understand it, especially in your case in a spec series, and it's just going to pay off huge.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Moderator, do we have another question?
Hi, Steve Flipsky, University Place, Washington. 2 technical questions having to do with driving. I'm relatively new to it, Formula Continental. I have this big debate going on between all the sort of club racer experts I know and the books about double clutch and not clutching, period. I find I'm new to not clutching, and I can really balance the car better, etc., keep both hands on the wheel. But everybody's telling me I'm, going to wreck the dog rings, blah, 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 blah. But, of course, maybe I'm not going to wreck the clutch. Okay, a comment on that from your racing experience. And
okay.
One last one, Formula Continental. We have the possibility of new cam rods as well as a lighter flywheel. Quick comment on that.
Excellent questions. And coincidentally, another thing that we debated with these world-class drivers at Daytona. And I will name names on this one. So I'm running Ryan Hunter-Reay, and most people know top IndyCar driver just signed a contract with Andretti Autosport, I think it's called now, for the IRL series. And Lucas Luhr, factory Audi driver, Porsche guy, very accomplished. I'm looking at data from both of those drivers, and after the first session we had run, and I see that Ryan Hunter-Reay isn't using the clutch. We have a sensor that actually measures clutch pressure, so I can see if they're using the clutch. And it's not something I normally check, but I'm looking at that and I see, wow, no clutch pressure from Ryan. Kind of makes sense. He's normally what I'm used to looking at. Most of those guys are all left foot breakers, don't use the clutch. Looking at Lucas Luhr's, and there he is, using the clutch on every downshift. Normally, you'll find today's modern, quick, and I'll throw in young drivers don't use the clutch at all in a car that they don't have to. A sequential shift dog ring gearbox like in your Continental. You don't have to use the clutch on the downshift. In this Daytona prototype, you don't have to use the clutch to downshift. It won't be any harder on the gearbox. It won't be, we have no lift shift, so on the upshift, you don't even take your foot off the throttle. You just pull the lever. So it all comes down to driver timing and things like that. So I talked to Lucas Luhr about it, and I said, why, what the heck are you doing? Why are you using the clutch? He said he thinks it helps him balance the car better especially the rear tires. He said he doesn't like to have to try to time the downshift blips to match the RPM just right. He says he thinks it saves the rear tire from that little bit of slip that you might get at each downshift. Makes the rear tires last longer, which is an important thing in a high horsepower car because you're always burning the rear tires off of it. So he thinks it makes the rear tires last a little bit longer. It helps him with his rhythm. Having grown up driving Porsche, GT3 911s for all those years, and back in the day you had to use the clutch, otherwise the gearbox would never last. So I think it's more of a driver preference timing kind of thing. Given the choice, you'll go quicker, I think, without using the clutch. You can blend the pedals, you can blend the gas and the brake better. Doing that, a lot of drivers will be able to balance it that way. One of the advantages of using the clutch and right foot braking and doing the heel and toe is sometimes it can save some fuel mileage because you're lifting off the throttle completely, but it tends to upset the car because you have that deceleration, nosedive, and pitch change and weight transfer associated with it. So there's no hard and fast rule on that, I don't think. That would be a really good question. I'm sure, I hope, a lot of the listeners are going to attend the Andy seminar coming up here, and where Ross Bentley is going to be speaking. Somebody needs to ask that question to Ross Bentley. He's an expert on driving, and it'd be good to see what his thoughts are. But from a technical standpoint, I would say you're not going to hurt the car, and it could potentially be quicker, but it comes down more to a timing and rhythm thing for each individual driver. Ryan Hunter-Reay and Lucas Luer, both doing it differently, were within a tenth of a second on lap time. So, that's pretty good proof that either way it can work. As far as the second question on the lighter flywheel, I think as a rule, I'd have to think, I pretty much can say lighter is always better, whether it's the car, the engine, for surely rotating mass. As an example of that, we once built a friend of mine, we built a Sports 2000 that had no flywheel, and it was direct drive, and it was fast. It was legal at the time, but now I think you read through the SCCA rule book and there's flywheel rules, which were designed after we did that. And, the engine will just accelerate quicker, and it will, it's like free. There's no sense to burn up horsepower just spinning a big weight. So that's my thoughts on lightweight parts and motors. I'm not a motor guy by any means, but if my brake rotors are lighter and my flywheel's lighter and my wheels are lighter, I'm a happy guy.
Thank you. I will ask Ross that question because I'm going to the seminar.
Fantastic.
Okay, excellent. Moderator, I think that we, at this point, we have time for about one more question.
Yeah, hi, Andy. This is Scott Goodrich, 7Ps Racing Support. How are you tonight?
Yeah, hi, Scott. Great to have you on.
Hi. My question is more not from a driver's standpoint, but from a track standpoint. I've been a race worker since the mid-'80s, and I do lots of other things out there at the track. What advice might you give Portland International Raceway to help them attract some more of the pro racer groups like we used to get? I'm hoping we can eventually get the Rolex Grand Am Series. Trans Am is skipping us this year, so we need some help in that area.
To me, I would love to go back to Portland. I ran a bunch of IndyCar stuff, kart back in the day. IMSA, when we were running the Team Scandia stuff, we ran at Portland. I ran a bunch of Indy Lights stuff there, and man, it's a good track, and it's a lot of fun. The people are great, and I don't really know why we're not back there anymore. I don't know it's probably got to do with something stupid about sanctioning fees or something like that. But boy, I wish we could go back there. So, but I don't have an answer. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, thanks. Thanks for your time. This has been a great interview.
No problem. Let's see if we can figure out how to get back to Portland. Here's what I'll tell you. I'll talk to Mark Raffoff, who runs the Grand Am series, is the race director, or I don't know what his official title is, but he's the head dude there. And I'll talk to him when I see him in a couple of weeks at Daytona, and I'll ask him that question: why we don't race at Portland anymore? Because I'd love to go back and come up there and put on a show.
Well, that would be great, Jeff. Portland is a great racing city, and the turnout for kart and open wheel racing was always tremendous there. I worked turns for many years for those events, so it would be great if you want to put in a good word for the Rose City.
I certainly will. That's a great question, and when he asked, I'm like, yeah, what? Why aren't we doing that? So I'll find out. I'll see what I can find out about that.
Okay. Well, Jeff, we are running out of time. Before we close here, would you give the listeners any closing words of advice that you might have generically about improving their race program?
Yeah, sure. I guess the biggest thing, and my three secrets there kind of they all had a reoccurring theme, I guess, and that's be smarter. Learn about what your program is. Learn about your car. Understand more about what you're doing. It's not about how much money you spend. My dad used to say when we were racing karts and cars and stuff, and we never had as much money as the other guys, he always beat into my head to do the free things first and do those right and do them exceptionally well. A lot of pro teams don't do that, and those free or low cost things are just to know more about your car, know more about how to operate your car, know more about the racetrack and what corners are the most important. I've got a chance to come up and talk at your seminars, and I think I've done 3 of them. And the last one, I had a whole talk just on those free things in racing. And, one of them, I guess, although not free, but so cheap that it might as well be free, is to attend, seminars like yours and go to places like that where you can learn from people. You've got, I don't know how many years you've been doing this. Did I read this one coming up to your 15th seminar?
Yes, Jeff, that's right. This is going to be our 15th seminar.
Man, well, I would, obviously, I'm sure a lot of these listeners will be going to that, and they're going to get to hear Ross Bentley and Jim Downing and guys like that talk. So, that's what I would do. I'd be learning what I can. And race smarter. You don't have to open up your wallet to go faster. Just be smarter.
Okay, excellent. Well, since you did mention our seminar, I will mention to everybody on the call that it's scheduled for February 13th in Tacoma. We do have Ross Bentley and Jim Downing headlining the events this year. Jeff, have you ever worked with Jim?
Yeah, I actually, both of those guys, a lot of people, we talked about Colin a little earlier. Ross Bentley has been Colin's driver coach since Colin was 12 years old. And they still, to this day, I don't think there's a race that goes by for Colin. He did 25 truck races last year, and I guarantee you 2 of them talked before every race and after every race. The guy is... I think I saw one of your deals there, Andy, where it said one of the top driver coaches in the world. Well, I'll say the top driver coach in the world. To go listen to Ross is going to be fantastic. Jim Downing, I've worked with him a lot. I ran Argo Camel Light cars back in the day and Kudzu Camel Light cars, and his company built those. And if it wasn't for the fact that the Hans device has been such a huge huge success in the safety and keeping people alive and all of that, he'd be known for all the fantastic race cars and fast, reliable race cars that he's built. So, there's 3 seminars worth of stuff with that Jim's going to have. So, yeah, I wish I had time to go up there and listen to it myself. I haven't. I'd love to hear his stories. There's a lot of stories that Jim's got.
Well, thank you for those kind words about our seminar. And if anyone listening would like to sign up for the seminar, all you have to do is go to our website where you signed up for this phone call at www.armadilloracing.com. All the details are on the website. So, hey, as we just get ready to sign off here, Jeff, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I just think what you're doing as far as being able to help everybody out in the Northwest there, and doing these seminars and this kind of thing. Maybe we can do some more of these teleseminars and have more people on. And all I want, you got to promise me one thing though. I need to be alerted as to any more of these teleseminars you're having and who the guest is, so that I can call in and listen. Because there's nothing like hearing people who know what they're talking about speak about racing. It's the only way I've learned. The likes of Carol Smith and Ross Bentley and a lot of people that have taken the time to explain things to me. That's how I got smarter, and I think everybody's going to benefit from what you're doing. So thanks for having me and including me in the whole deal.
Okay, well, Jeff, thank you very much for spending not only an hour of your time here on the call, but I know you spent a lot of time preparing for this call. I want to thank everybody for calling in. If you'd like to email me with your comments, you can sure do that, and that'd be great. It's just Andy@armadilloracing.com. And it is my plan to host seminars. Well, maybe we can do one every month. I'll keep you posted on the next event. And, of course, if you found this call valuable, please tell your friends. So thanks to everyone on the call. Thank you, Jeff, and I'll see everybody at the races.